Dave Ham, welcome to ATV Talk, the Vegas to Reno race report. We're going to cover some classes here. I know you were there. You slightly participated a little, I'm sure,
A little bit, a little
Yeah.
bit. And you know what? One of the things that I want to do when we talked the night before the race, and we did that pre-race report, um, one of the things I said was, we wanted to uh, finish in as close to 12 hours or here under as we could. And how does 11 hours and 54 minutes sound when you're predicting to go 12 hours? We were only 6 minutes off of our prediction. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a pretty good prediction.
Right. That's not bad. Um, so let's talk about the course itself.
Okay.
It seems like from looking at the times and the distance, was it a little rougher, a little slower than we had normally have seen in a Vegas to Reno?
This was my third go around on it, and it was there was some rough sections. I mean, I had four or five of the sections I did in between the pits, and a couple of those were rougher than anything I've ever experienced in that race. But then a couple of them were the same kind of thing, where you're just flying across the desert. I mean, had it pegged for a long time, a couple times, and so it was a little bit of everything. But I would say that this was the roughest one that I've experienced, and the longest for that matter too. So a combination of both.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that, thinking of the start times, the finish time, and the hours, for the fastest finish was a truck team, and they were only 2 minutes faster than the fastest bike team. And that was first and second overall if you just go on times. And 8 hours and 52 minutes. That's a long race.
They had they had speed control sections in this race, and they were longer speed control sections than I've ever seen in this race. There was one area that was 65 miles an hour, and that doesn't affect the three wheelers and the quads much, but that affects the trophy trucks a lot. And when you got those trophy trucks, they held them down to 65 miles an hour for I don't know how many miles it was. I'm just going on a limb and guessing 8 to 10 miles in sections. That's significant. If those trucks have to go 65 instead of 125, that's a big difference.
Do you remember when the entries opened up for Vegas to Reno this year?
Um, I don't. I mean, I'd just be guessing to tell you. I want to say 2 months ago, so 2 months prior to the race, I think you could sign up, but I'm not 100% accurate on that.
Yeah, some of the classes just seemed a little light for me.
I think so too. Legacy has a good program they're running now too. So, there's all the other places to go race desert right now, and it's kind of a little bit deleting the pool, maybe a little bit. I know a lot of people are racing in the Legacy series. A lot of people are racing best in the desert. So, Legacy wasn't around several years back. It was just best in the desert. So I'm sure they've pulled a little bit out of the hat.
Do you think the late start or the late uh, deal with knowing that Vegas to Reno was going to happen hurt us?
Um, I could just guess and say, yeah, they were pretty diligent right after that Parker race got canceled that Vegas and Reno was going to go. So that was what 4 or 5 months ago that one got pulled out from underneath us. So
Confidence. I mean, people, these truck teams are some of the guys I'm thinking about are, the truck entries were down, and these guys spend thousands and thousands of dollars. Granted, your team spent a lot of money to do it. The quad team spent a lot of money to do it. Same with the bikes, but your cubic dollars when you're racing a truck.
oh, it's out of control. Yeah, I mean, I've heard that those truck teams are $1 million operations. So
or,
yeah,
or better, or better.
yeah, right, right. So they're they're trying to plan things a year out for sure. And so, the Baja races, they're planning those a year out. So entries were light. There's no doubt about entries being light. I think there was a total of only 10 or 12 quads total in the race. I mean, we did well as a three-wheeler group. We doubled our entries from last year. So we were happy with that, and I think that will continue to grow, and there'll probably be more entries next year. There's a lot of people already excited about it, and the buzz is catching on, and the people are planning ahead. So, but I think all the other classes, obviously UTV classes was huge. I mean,
Right.
that just goes forever, but their numbers from finishing numbers aren't exactly the best yet. They're still learning how to get all those cars to the finish line.
Yeah, the naturally aspirated pro class, 2 guys finished.
Right. I mean, it was rough. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was really, really rough. The very beginning of that race was way more silt than I've ever seen in that race. Yeah, visibility was really bad. We started early on, so we were just following the bikes, and the visibility was bad. I can only imagine what it was like when those trucks and side by sides and cars went through there. It had to be visibility zero, and unless you're really used to riding in those kind of conditions, it could take some people out quick.
Well, the pro bike guys, the first place guys, they did pretty well and won by 6 minutes or so. So they had a pretty good lead on second place. What I like about the pro bike class is there's 3 different manufacturers on the podium.
Yeah, and like we know what happened in motocross with Jet and Lawrence winning on the Hondas. Honda won Vegas to Reno this year too, so
Right.
clock went up for Honda, right?
Well, yeah, they do. Didn't they win the 3-wheeler class and the 4-wheeler class as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. And like I say, here's a great statistic for you. Every single vintage three-wheeler that has ever entered Vegas to Reno has finished. 100%, 100% success rate from 1985 machines.
Wow. Yeah, because the young man finished on the 250R, right?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And he had an amazing story. I mean, that was Julian Hopert, and this was his first time ever racing that race. Um, I hope I'm not embarrassing him when I say this. So the only crash he had was from the pits of the starting line to the starting line. He literally crashed before he got to the starting line. He showed
Ah,
up to the he showed up to the starting line looking like a powdered donut. He was just covered in white silt. So there was a silt bed he found prior to getting to the starting line and took a little tumble in it. So that was his only crash, and so everything after that was well. And he ended up being, as far as I'm concerned, he ended up being the superstar of all the three-wheeler guys. Not only did he Ironman it and finish it on a two-stroke, he helped a lot of people along the way. It was awesome. I mean, there was a couple of real bad accidents that he came across, and he stopped and put his forward progress on the line and did what was best for that individual or individuals. And in one stop time, he waited to helicopter the guy out with a broken femur.
speaking of that, something that they never did in the past is they would never calculate downtime for an individual rider to to helping another rider. Um, how do they administer that? Do that? Is that something they have with the tracking device that's on the machine now? They know when it stops, and they can calculate that for the riders.
Exactly. They, with modern technology, a lot of the guys are wearing GoPro, but they do have tracking on all of us. Every machine in that race has a tracking device, and they can tell you literally where you are on that course at all times. And when you stop, they know you're stopped. Obviously, when you stop and there's an accident there, and it gets reported in, and they did an amazing investigation job at the end of that race, and that's why the official results took a few days to actually come out, because unfortunately there was a million penalties. There was so many of these speed zones that people couldn't read signs. They were well posted, and there's a big difference between 25 miles an hour and 50 miles an hour. So they told us all at the pre-race meeting that these things are posted and they're going to be strictly enforced, for not only for the safety of all riders, but for the fairness of the race. And if you chose to speed through those things, you were going to get penalized. And they made it perfectly clear, and everybody heard this at the pre-race meeting. And yet, I think there was over 50 people that got dinged on time for speeding through these speed zones.
Well, if we're going to talk about speed zones, why do you think that these speed zones are coming up? Is it because we're racing where there are more clusters of humans? Are we riding into areas where people are living now? I mean, what's the reason for the specific speed zones?
A lot of preservation. We were going through a area that was something to do with some mating time of the year for certain animals and stuff. So they didn't want us to go blazing through that. These were all things that were set on, like BLM or other governing agencies set these rules for us to get through these areas.
Oh, these other guys that we never paid taxes and never voted them in, those groups?
Yes, those exact groups. And so
Oh,
unfortunately, things are changing in those environmental areas, and it's not like the good old days where they would let a bunch of tires on fire, and that was the start of the race. And we, in order to keep this awesome race going, we have to listen to these rules, and it's going to be a shame if people can't listen to these rules, and it ruins it for the majority because it's a very fragile situation to have these kind of races where you race from one tip of the state to the other. Nevada is the only state in the United States that I know of is allowing anyone to do that anymore. And we all, as racers, we got to really crack down on each other and make sure we follow these rules because we don't want the rug pulled out from underneath us and we can't have these amazing races anymore. And it was, I mean, we were
how about
talking 520 miles. A 10-mile area is not hard to worry about for 520 miles. And they let you go as fast as you want for 510 miles, but you have to pay attention to 10 miles and not go too fast. That seems
I,
like
I
an easy.
totally I totally agree with you, but what about the common sense for the reality of what goes on in the world?
I hear you. I hear you. I don't know. I saw that zone. I did not have a speedometer. I'm sure there was a little bit of a wiggle room in that area. Um, I didn't know exactly what 25 miles an hour was going to feel like on a three-wheeler, but I had a good guesstimation. And I just made it a point to get real close to that and stay there until the sign said resume speed.
Right,
And I know these side by sides and trucks, they're on GPS inside those cockpits. They know exactly how fast they're going most of the time.
right.
And for them not to get at least close to that 5 miles an hour, I'm sure they gave us that 10-mile an hour leeway, and the guys couldn't even stay within that. So all I got to say is shame on them a little bit.
What did they ding you for a penalty for speeding in there?
I think a lot of them were 5 minutes, but there might have been some severe things. I didn't dig into it real deep. I know that none of the three wheelers got dinged on that at all. There were a few different teams that got awarded some time back for stopping and helping people. And we were actually one of those teams. One of our riders, David Wiley, to be specific, was able to stop and help Ed Hicks, who took a real hard fall right in front of him. And, that's the way it's supposed to be. We're all out there. We all need to not put ourselves first or our team first, but put the safety of other teams and other riders. Because I know if I was laying out there hurt real bad, I would want whoever came by me next to stop and help me if they can.
Right, right. I kind of appreciate that the modern form of it with the tracking device allowing the participants to help the participants because no, sometimes an official's an hour away.
Or more. They can't, there's no way they can have enough manpower to be all the way across 525 miles of a race course to help us. And in some cases, you're out there for hours before they get medical attention to you. So they're real big, and they talk about this in every pre-race meeting about we as racers have to have each other's backs. That's the only way this sport is going to survive in this country. And I think for the most part, we all do that. I don't know of any time that I've heard of any story where a person crashes it and riders just fly right by and not check on them. I've never heard that happening at all. So I think it's only fair that you're going to stop and help people and make sure they're safe, and you just get awarded back however long you stopped. I mean, if you're there for 30 seconds, 30 seconds gets back to you. If you were there for 3 hours, 3 hours gets back to you.
I was very fortunate in when I was racing Best in the Desert that I had to get off and Um, I remember 6 of the pro quad guys, when I finally realized what was going on, they're all standing there looking at me, and I'm like, oh, okay, guys, I'm back to normal. I know what's going on now. You guys can go. And they
Yeah.
all got on their quads and took off, and I was very fortunate that I was okay. But that was great because if I would have been seriously injured, they would have been able to get help, to me. There was a checkpoint just, mile and a half down the road that neither here nor there. The guys stopped and took care of me. And most of the time when we were racing back in the day, you'd get a thumbs up and you continue. If you didn't get the thumbs up, you stopped.
Yeah, yeah. And they were and another thing, once we got him situated and helped him out and made sure he was okay and got his bike started for him and let him continue. As soon as we got to the pit, we let his team know that he's okay, that he had a crash, that he's okay, he's back up and moving, and he should be coming in soon. And so not only did the race continue and everyone was good, but you do what you can because that pit crew is sitting there wondering what happened to him.
Right. And he's okay.
He's great. He just got the wind knocked out of him. I think maybe dislocated his shoulder that got put back in and just got banged up real good, but no broken bones, luckily.
That's really good. The pro quads, you had mentioned that in the pre-conversation that the guys from Indiana came in that they're XC racers and put it on the pro quad class.
Yeah, Hayden Hintz and Trevor Hunter came in from Indiana, and they've been racing through the trees back there for several years on the pro level and doing well, holding their own. And as far as I know, this was their first time racing Vegas to Reno. Maybe they've done it before and I just didn't realize it. But man, they won, and they won in drastic fashion. I mean, 8 hours and 54 minutes. Excuse me, I'm sorry. That was a dirt bike finish time. But
Right.
they finished in 10 hours and 14 minutes, which was a big gap between first and second place in the pro quad class.
Well, hey, they had a good ride. I believe, if I remember correctly, I seen some things where they had some downtime. They even had, they have a whole saga and story for their whole race to make this whole thing happen for them.
Yeah, I don't know the details, but yeah, I'm assuming you're right.
Yeah, I saw some stuff on social media during it, and I didn't catch that they were leading the race at the time.
Wow. Wow.
So when we go back, we're going to have to definitely look into those guys and maybe catch their story. We talked about how do you pronounce his first name?
Who's that?
Julian?
Oh, Julian.
Julian. Sorry about
Yes.
that, Julian. I'm going to be having him on the podcast here soon. He had a great ride, and I was listening to Wrangle had called me during the day and was giving me times and distance, and and he stopped for someone for quite a while and
Yes.
helped them, and he got that time back.
Yep.
So, I mean, and he even made time up coming back through the field, just to stay away from the cars and the trucks so that they didn't run him down.
Yeah. No, he for the first time in that race, he did very, very well. And again, just Iron Manning that race is an accomplishment by himself, and to finish on your first try and I have so many success stories where he helped so many people. It was awesome. It was great to see.
I can't wait to sit down and talk to that young man and get some of that. Chris Blaze, former motorcycle rider, and Guthrie. Guthrie was a trophy cart guy when I was doing trophy carts years back. Young kid, super driver. He won in the trophy unlimited class in the UTVs, and Chris Blaze was right behind him. So sounds like those guys had a really good battle in that class.
Yeah, I was so wrapped up in the race and stuff like that I didn't. I looked at it briefly after I was done at who finished where, but yeah, Mitch and Mitchell. I mean, it's two generations of Guthries that are been racing now side by sides, and winning everything. I mean, doing really well. I believe he almost overalled on a side by side against the trophy trucks not too long ago.
I heard something about that. I really did, and I
Yeah,
didn't.
he was. I think if I'm not mistaken, he was like 2 minutes off of the trophy truck pace in the Silver State 300.
Okay, I mean, you think about it. They're only 30 minutes, 40 minutes behind the fastest bike. You
It's
know,
impressive the evolution of the side by side class I call it, and there's all kinds of different classes in that, but the evolution of those machines is extremely impressive if you look where they were 10 years ago to where they are today. I mean, super impressive times.
well, it's for the amount of money some of them guys put in them UTVs, they could be driving trophy trucks.
Tell me about it. It's crazy. It's crazy. I just don't think they have. I mean, the guys that are finishing clean and getting smooth sailing, I mean, their times are impressive. But when you look at the overall percentage of entries versus the percentage of actually finishing the race, they're still not up to par with durability, I guess you could call it.
The quads and the three wheelers had those problems too for a number of years. We've gotten it down to where, I'm sure in the early days of the motorcycles, they were struggling too. You take the technology of the motorcycle, the quads and the three wheelers, and it's just gotten better and better and better. UTVs are still relatively young, and for the speeds they're trying to go and the size of tires they're trying to use, I'm surprised that the amount finished that do.
That's a good way to look at it. I mean, I just I just keep going back to the actual size of the motor. I mean, we're talking 1,000 cc machine versus 1,000 horsepower trophy truck.
Right.
So I mean, I mean, it's bizarre that a 1,000 cc machine can almost go the same speed over 500-mile long race as 1,000 horsepower trophy truck. That's so impressive to me.
Well, they're limited on realistically in the environment how fast they can go. And if it gets tight and technical, that UTV is going to actually squirt through there a little faster than some of those trophy trucks.
The times tell that that's true. That's for sure. That's pretty cool.
100-mile-an-hour section with whoop, waist high whoops. That truck's just bouncing across it and never even slowing down. The UTV is not going to go through there as fast. But you get it a really tight set of whooped S's, and now that UTV is going to go through there much faster than that trophy truck.
Agreed. Even going back to the quads and the three wheelers, I mean, there was some canyons that we were going up that were some pretty soft canyons that were really windy. So the motorcycles, unless you're a really savvy sand rider on a motorcycle, they can struggle a little bit in that soft sand stuff when they have to turn real tight. And so I can just go from my own personal experience that I was able to pass quite a few motorcycles going up those sandy canyons. And that was always a cool feeling being on a three wheeler and passing a motorcycle that started way in front of you.
Oh yeah, they're probably pissed.
Yeah, it's
We're passing.
you definitely they want to put up a little bit more of a fight when they see it's a three wheeler getting ready to pass them. I've witnessed that through all my racing.
Do you notice at the end of the race you start catching? You catch less and less, but you catch them quicker. They just seem not to put up near as much of a fight.
I think we all, when you hit that 10, 12-hour mark in the race, there's 10 hours of going nonstop on off-roading. It could take the fight out of you. Let's just say that much.
Yes, it can. So let's just get into it. The three wheelers, there was a controversy at the finish because they were having to sort times. We've talked about the tracking device and giving time back for riders that had stopped and riders that didn't, or penalties for speeding. And when they got done with all of their review, you were the champ.
Yeah, it was good. It was all. I mean, it was unofficial up until a couple of days later. It took them 3 days to weed through the results and give out the penalties, and they made phone calls and talked to different people to make sure they got it right. They didn't want to come up with official results that weren't 100% accurate based off of research that they could do. They made some phone calls to people. They looked at the tracking devices. They took the penalties into consideration. But the three-wheeler class was just an amazing run. I mean, there was 4 different lead changes throughout the race. We were just back and forth, and even when there weren't those lead changes, usually there was seconds in between pit stops. I mean, one team would be coming to the pit, and 3 seconds later, the other team's coming into the pit. So we were back and forth the entire duration of the race, all the way to the end. And I rode the last 2 legs for our team, from pit 11 to the finish line, and it was the roughest section of the whole course. There was some ridiculous rocks that we were going over there towards the end, where it was just miles and miles of rock garden that was taking its toll not only on me but on our machine itself. And we, I came to one section, and it seemed like 5 miles of rock. So I stood up on the pegs and was going over these rocks. And when it finally smoothed out where I could sit down, there was no seat on the trike. I had somehow lost the seat through that 5-mile section of rocks, and I looked over my shoulder just to see if I could see it anywhere in sight, and I couldn't see it. So I just continued on without the seat. And there was, I think, approximately 15 to 20 miles left in the race from that point to the finish line. And I've never rode a three-wheeler for 20 miles standing up on the foot pegs ever in my life, nor do I ever want to do that again. But at that stage of the race, we had a decent lead, and that lead dwindled very quickly without a seat. And it was 100 yards from the finish line that I got passed by another three-wheeler, and they started in front of us. We didn't know how far they started in front of us at that point, nor do I really know 100% how far they finished in front of us. I can tell you it was like 100 yards when I got past to the finish line. I could see the finish line, so it was a heartbreaker. But then they took all the penalties and the fact that we stopped to help that team's rider for a while, all into consideration. And when the dust settled and everything was finalized, we had got about a 4-minute win. So that was a pretty cool experience to be that close at the finish line.
Wow, that's pretty awesome stuff there. And this is your third time trying to or racing Vegas to Reno, and it's your third try realistically. And when I say try, your first 2 times didn't end quite the way you would wanted them to.
No, it's a brutal race, and we were new to this game, and they never built a machine that could go 500 miles without any hiccups. And those hiccups cost us the first 2 times I tried this, where we didn't even finish the race. So this time we had a different perspective. We learned from our mistakes, and we just had a completely different mindset going into this. We knew in order to finish first, you first must finish.
Right.
And so we were all about the finish. We were pacing ourselves. We weren't going to let the race, no matter who or what was around us, we weren't going to let it affect our game plan. We were going to ride our race. We were going to go as fast as the terrain could let us go. And around the 400-mile mark, that's when we thought if we were still going strong, then we could reevaluate things and make it a race if we were still in it. And it was pretty much that way. I mean, there was less than seconds in between us almost at every pit. It was an impressive, super close race all the way to the finish.
That's awesome. Have you talked to Luke at all?
I have. I talked to him briefly after everything was finalized and stuff, and he's a great sportsman. He congratulated us. You know, he won it last year, so he knows what it feels like, and I'm sure they were a little bit disappointed in the outcome this year since they won it last year, but they understand, and they were nothing but congratulations to us.
That's excellent. Everybody, I wish every class was like that, where the competitors would all shake each other's hands and congratulate each other, even in a controversial situation.
Yeah, I mean, we all the three-wheeler teams, we all sat at the same table at the banquet the night after the race, and nothing but love for all of us in that three-wheeler class. We would all get the shirt off our back to help any of the other people in this race. I've raced against almost every single person that was in that race multiple times over the last 15 or so years, and so we're like one big happy family, really.
You guys all go to the same psychologist?
Yeah, there's definitely probably a screw loose in that group once or twice, that's for sure.
Well, they say that about racers in general. So, David, what's up next for you?
I'm still in the hunt for the Work Series, racing the quad and the three-wheeler in the Work Series. So no rest after Vegas to Reno. We're gearing up for headed to northern Utah here in 2 weeks. Next round of that. It's at a new course that Works has never ran before. It's in Vernal, Utah, it's way up north, so it's a different place for all of us, and no one's raced this before, so it's exciting. Anytime you can go into some neutral type territory for everybody, it's a fun event. So just really concentrating on the Work Series the rest of this year, and then after that's all done, we'll reevaluate 2024. But it's still got a lot of fight going ahead of me in order to get my goals accomplished for this year.
Well, that's awesome. Hey, I want to thank you so much for giving us the lowdown on Vegas to Reno. You know that this race to me is near and dear to my heart. I love Vegas to Reno as a whole. I think everyone that races should experience it. I know that we didn't cover everyone, and I apologize. We had to hit the highlights. We could be here for 2 hours and not get them all, but make sure you guys go check your results, and congratulations to the winners and the participants that finished. Anything else you want to say in closing, brother?
No, just that all the three-wheelers, Mike Burston, they brought a team down from Northern Oregon, and they ended up finished third on a 350X, what I thought was awesome. Kevin Adcock brought a team in from Kansas, and they were on a TPC this year. Kevin was actually part of the winning team last year, and they had a couple inexperienced desert racers on that team that crashed and made it rough to get the finish. They ended up throwing in the towel right before the finish line because of some bad circumstances that took place. But I know they'll be back next year, and it was just awesome having that many three-wheelers in a 500-mile race, and having such a huge success rate on the majority of us getting to the finish line and telling our stories together. There's just so many sponsors that help, not only on my team, but all the three-wheeler teams. And just want to, without naming names of sponsors, just want to say thanks to the majority of those that are still supporting us in our three-wheeler racing habit. It's awesome to have sponsors behind us.
Well, that being said, we want to thank all the sponsors that help all the teams, especially the ones that help us run the podcast here. And thanks everybody for listening. David, we'll be catching up with you later. And again, if you got something coming up, reach on out to us.